Good afternoon. It's good to be here. It's good to be with all of you on this very interesting weekend. I almost don't know where to start. Um, I really don't know exactly where to start, but it's been that kind of a weekend anyway. So let me thank you for being here. And yeah, thank you for being here. With all the choices that you have of places that you could be on this Sunday afternoon, you've chosen to be here, and I'm grateful for that. So thank you all. Hola, Nancy, Steve. It's good that you are here, and I'm sure Philip will show up. Let me know when he does. And I think Rosa Maria is here because she's already communicated with me once. So so thank you, those of you that are here. Hello, Brenda. I love you too. Ah, where is here for you? Where is here? For me right now, here is at my desk, kind of overlooking a broad view of Ventura and the ocean beyond it. Ah, in the city of Ventura, in the state of California, in the United States of America, on the planet Earth. I have to remind myself of that sometimes, don't you? Where I really am when my head goes, and I have to say, whoa, wait a minute, where are we? Where are we? We're here. And where is here? Well, here is with Dana and Brenda and Donna. Hello. It's good to be here with all of you. Of course, some of you won't be listening to this until it's after here, and and now that's what the replays are for. And thank you to all of you who are sharing the talks on your timelines and in other places. Let's get the word out, shall we? Um, wow, what a weekend it's been. What a weekend it's been. I'll go into my personal experience of the weekend in a couple of minutes, but I'd like you to think for a moment about yours. And let's just take a deep breath and be here, right here on Facebook Live together now. Because there's been a lot going on, and there's probably a lot on your minds. There is certainly a lot on mine. Um, I'm going to tell you I have changed the title of the talk for now, I think, um, just because of what's transpired in the last 48 hours. And because the small idea I had of what I was going to talk about just never really evolved, never grew into anything. It kind of is now as an afterthought, so I'll probably talk about it next week. But for now, I think I'd like to call today's talk We're All in This Together. And you'll see why in a couple of minutes. Today's talk came to me today. It's fresh out of the oven. I tossed what I was going to talk about because other things seem to take priorities. So here we be. Oh, really, Donna? Donna says Julia and Brenda got arrested at the protests last night. Oh, mercy. Mercy. That's my adopted goddaughter and her husband, who we love, and they are the best people on the planet. Um, so we'll dedicate this to them and to Nancy. Thank you. You kind of instigated a lot of today's talk, and you'll see that as it happens. Um, do we need to bail them out, Donna? Do we need to bail them out, or are they out? Were they one of the ones they were talking about catch and not keep, catch and throw out in the morning? Hi Heidi, glad you're here. Oh, Donna, I need to know. Let me know how my goddaughter is, my adopted goddaughter. The world is a better place because she is in it. And her mother and her husband and her father and her real godmother. The world's a better place for all of them. And they were cited and released. Yeah, okay, good. Thank you, Donna. I appreciate that. Um, good. I can think more clearly now, knowing don't have to be thinking about where bail money is going to come from. So here we are on what was going to be a normal Sunday morning until the world changed again, as it tends to. It's doing it a lot lately, hasn't it? The world that the world that we knew last year at this time doesn't even seem to exist right now. And the world that we knew last week at this time has changed. And I haven't listened to the news this morning because I was busy writing a whole brand new talk, but I have been told that the film crews were out there covering people who were out there with brooms and stuff, working together, saying we're all in this together, cleaning things up, not being angry. Um, Not necessarily what you would expect. Certainly not what history has led us to expect. Um, but a new reality, maybe. Wow. We keep saying it's a new normal. I don't know if I'm crazy about the new normal. I am hoping that the new normal has not actually even happened yet. That, in fact, we're going through that in between space. To borrow from what may be next week's talk, we are neither here nor there. But in the space in between, the space between the way that it was and the way that it will be, but it's messy here. It's messy. We don't know quite what to expect or what is expected of us, do we? So, I'd like to talk to you about that this morning. What maybe to expect, what history has to teach us, perhaps, and what we might yet do to create the world that I know each of us envisions. The world that we know is absolutely a possibility, and yet we seem stumped sometimes on exactly what to do to make it happen, to help birth the new reality. So, I'm just going to check one more time here. I'm happy you're here, Heidi. It always makes me feel good. I think of you and I think of beautiful doors and amazing places and creative endeavors and balloons rising in the sky before we knew we weren't supposed to do that. So, let me get into what I want to get into, and then maybe we can chat a little bit more. We are all in this together. How often, how often have we heard that in the past few months? We're all in this together. Yes, the pandemic. We are all in it. The world is in it. But what seems to have become clear, at least to me, is that there are different teams in the game. And for their own reasons, not all the teams are playing by the same rules. Or maybe the rules just haven't been established yet. See, I believe that in order to play well together, in order to survive this, we're going to have to agree that each team has its own reasons for believing that what it does is right. Think Democrats and Republicans. Or don't if that's upsetting for you, because I really want you to listen. We're going to have to find some way to respect those differences if we are to survive. So Here's a scenario. I'll honor your need to support your family and open your barber shop. And you'll agree to practice social distancing and wear a mask and wash your hands. And please, don't be offended, but honor my right not to be there. I honor your right to make a living. And the people who are not immune suppressed and are willing to take the risk will come and support you. I cried last night because the streets of Los Angeles were burning again. I was there in 1965 when the Watts riots happened. I remember how it felt. And I was there in 1992. In fact, our church gathered carloads and carloads and carloads of supplies and drove them into South Central Los Angeles. It was frightening. And it was deeply sad. The last 2 nights looting and burning started with a peaceful protest. Please don't misunderstand. Not only do I love my adopted goddaughter and her husband, but I absolutely respect and honor their right to protest. Dear God, that's freedom of speech. It's American. It's become global. I've been in France when you couldn't get across a street for a half an hour to 45 minutes because protesters were marching. And we've all seen the streets of Hong Kong on the news. Protesters come in all colors. I truly appreciate that protesters are speaking out against wrongs. I agree with most of them. And not to ignore the cause for which this week's protesters were marching. George Floyd, a great big bear of a black man, was killed by a policeman who seemed to stare into space while his knee pushed down on Floyd's neck. And the man pleaded for his breath until there wasn't anymore. There are great policemen and women, first responders who have run into danger as others ran away. Men and women who have sacrificed their own lives to protect ours. There are really good policemen and women, like last night's responders, who walk into danger because it's their job. It's what they've signed up for. And unfortunately, as is true everywhere, in every occupation, there are bad police, bad or careless or thoughtless or bigoted police who should not be allowed to exercise that kind of power over others. Police come in all colors and flavors. I'm going to digress for a moment. Yesterday, I was having trouble deciding what to talk to you about today. Nothing was clicking. I should have known that that was a sign that I didn't have enough information yet. It usually is. It doesn't happen very often. But I wait for the click, and the click didn't happen. I was dozing off. I was distracted. Kat went out to run a few errands, and when she came back, I told her my dilemma. And she thought for a minute, and then she said, I just heard a great interview on NPR, and I think it might be just what you were looking for. So she found it, and I listened, and it was. The interview was part of a Moth radio series, and the particular segment was called How You See Me. The story was being told by a young poet, Enrique Garcia Naranjo, who was eloquent. He was performing his poetry in front of an audience of 60 to 70 high school students who lived in the borderline area of Arizona. And he talked about looking into their sleepy, disinterested faces until he talked about the barrio he had been raised in, the holiness of tacos, and the unrelenting spirit of Mexican grandmothers. And that, he said, won them over. So he asked them to pull out some paper and pencils and write some bilingual poems about their city. He called it The City in My Chest. Students of the border, fronterizos and fronterizas, wrote courageously from their hearts about their life experience. On his way home from the performance and the teaching, Enrique and his partner Selena realized that there appeared to be a car speeding up to catch up with them. And then the red and the blue lights came on. At first they thought it was a police car and wondered what they had done. But when the officer got out of the car, they saw the green uniform of the Border Patrol. And suddenly they were fearful. Now, Enrique's father had always told him that if you are ever apprehended, sit up straight, look them in the eye, and answer their questions truthfully. Enrique comes from what he called a mixed status family, the majority of them undocumented. But Enrique was born in the United States, so he is a citizen. Selena was not a citizen, but she had DACA coverage. However, neither of them had any documents on them. But, said Enrique, it really didn't make too much difference because documents tend to fall flat in situations like this. Documents, he said, don't change the color of your skin. The border patrolman asked Selena, where are you from? Oakland, she replied. Oakland, he said, chuckling. Are you going to shoot me? They looked at each other confused, but luckily Selena said no. So again, chuckling, he asked, can I look in the trunk to check for a dead body? Stunned, Enrique said, yes, and then finally realized that the policeman was making jokes. This is his reality, Enrique thought. His reality, that he's just being funny. Enrique and Selena weren't laughing. Their experience, their history had taught them that situations like this tend to end in one of three ways: detention, deportation, or death. And they were scared. Well, said the border guard, smiling, you two look like you could be citizens. Have a pleasant day. And he got back into his patrol car and drove away. You look like you could be citizens. Enrique said the words kept running over and over again in his head. You look like you could be. How could I be a citizen, he asked himself, if I am stopped for what I look like? In his own words, he felt like he was on the brink of being. No de aquí, no de allá. Not from here, not from there. He found himself thinking about the students, the fronterizos and the fronterizas, and their bravery. Caught in a flux between citizen and alien, silence and disruption between here and there. The incident with the Border Patrol lasted maybe 10 minutes. He and Selena were happy they still had their lives and that they were free. And they had done nothing. And gratefully, neither had the officer. But it raises the question, doesn't it? Why were they pulled over? What does a citizen look like? Which then brings me back around and makes me ask, what does a good protester look like? If I had it handy, I'd show you a picture of my adopted goddaughter. What does a good policeman or policewoman look like? Or what does a looter look like? What does a bad virus look like? How do we differentiate between good and bad, right and wrong? How do we know? My eyes are tired from crying tears over children who have been killed by bullets shot from the weapons at people who are mentally unstable. My heart hurts for those who have to steal to provide for their families because a virus has closed down their place of business. My mind is exhausted from asking so many whys. And my ears are weary from listening to answers, for answers, that never seem to come. And I'm one of the lucky ones. One of the truly blessed. The Thomas fire did not take my home. The virus has not taken any of my family. The looters did not steal my property. Oh yeah, and I look like a citizen, don't I? Don't we all? Don't we all look the same in the important parts of our anatomy? Do we not all have 2 ears, 2 eyes, a mouth, a nose? Do we not all bleed? Thank you, Shakespeare. We are all in this together. And to me, that means that we are all responsible for overcoming it, whatever it may be. I cannot turn it off. I cannot tune out. I can no longer pretend it will all go away. It will go underground for a while, perhaps, but it does not go away. So how do we get from here to there? I think it all depends on where there is for us. If there is that comfortable place you were in last year, then keep doing what you have been doing, and we will end up here again. Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. 1965, 1992, 2020. One of the experts interviewed by the news team at ABC said last night, it just takes one person to do one thing, to say one thing, and it escalates to this. And then some people step out of line, people infiltrate and take advantage of the situation for their own purposes. It only takes one person. But what if that works both ways? What if it only takes one person to speak out, one person to stand up, one person to say yes or to say no? And what if that person is you? If you can imagine a better world, a world in which Enrique and Selena don't have to panic when red and blue lights come up behind them, a world in which a man or woman, black or brown or yellow or white, is not assumed to be guilty of a crime because of the color of their skin. A world in which we can find common ground and the patience and the wisdom to communicate with one another in times of crisis as well as in times of peace. If you can imagine a world in which we all can come together because we really do realize that we are all in this together and learn to be loving or at least understanding, which is the first step to peace, which in the long run becomes peace of mind and freedom for all of us. Then please join me in prayer and in seeking solutions. Do not assume that everything will go away. Do not keep praying for normal to be returned, because normal is what got us here. I don't pretend to have a solution, except to tell people to come from love and not fear. Love of God, love of self, and love of others. And why? Why would we not want to love others, except that we have been taught that others, that different colors mean different things, that the intentions of others are dominated by the color of their skin, or the way they speak, or the country they come from. We've got to stop that. Enrique was a first generation for his family to be born here. I was only the second. Maybe you can go back generations and generations and claim this land as your own, but I'm here to tell you, unless you're a Native American, you're wrong. Looters come in all colors. I was watching last night, and as they were showing the protesters, I saw a rainbow of colors. And then as the protesters, some became looters, as some stepped out for reasons of their own and became looters, what I noticed was that they came in all colors. I wasn't terribly cognizant of it because so many of them were dressed in black and had on black masks. And I am aware that some people came in specifically to loot. So I'm there. That's a different breed. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the ones who got caught up in the moment. And some of them, yes, were dressed all in black with black masks, but they weren't necessarily all black. In fact, they were for sure not all black. And one guy in red shorts and kind of a plaid shirt was very decidedly white. You could tell by the color of his legs. Why do we shut people out? Because they are a different color than we are, or come from a different part of town or a different country. Jesus said, love one another. So, folks, it's Christian. And if you are not at least trying to love one another, all of the one another's, then you are not being a Christian. I don't care how often you go to church. We have to try. We have to look at our own racism and our own bigotry and recognize it and overcome it. And when our trying screws up, we have to try harder. And when we are disappointed by the results of our trying, like so many of the peaceful protesters must be today, then we have to get out there and do it again and again and again until we're heard. Looters and cops and people with masks come in all colors. It is wrong and it is dangerous to try to make exceptions. If we are all in this together, then we are all on some level guilty and we are all on some level innocent until the problem is solved. We have to try. One person at a time, one encounter at a time. The experts said it last night, all it takes is one person. One person, and understanding can become as contagious as the coronavirus. One thoughtful action, one understanding heart, one prayer, one mask. Even if you don't believe it's going to do you any good. Okay, go out, but put a mask on. I know they're uncomfortable. Yes, it is hard to breathe, but no one has their knee on your neck and you might just save your grandmother's life. Stop looking at the color of someone's skin and look into their heart. See their soul. Or look at their lips and really see what they are saying to you. I pray for the day when we can look into the eyes of a man or a woman and no longer see fear or anger or resentment, but instead see love and understanding. I pray for the day when we really are all in this journey called life together, and when we have integrated both body and spirit, when we do what our spirit calls us to do. When we behave like there is only one team, Team Humanity. And we rejoice and are glad in it. Until then, I will pray and I will think. And I suppose I will cry. Please. The next time you have the opportunity, choose understanding. Choose love. Let the God in you speak to the God in the other person. And you will do no harm. It can do only good. Thank you for listening, for allowing me to tell you what is on my heart. Dana says, what's expected of us? That we try. Yeah, I know Yoda, do not try, do. But let's start with trying. Let us try to remember that we are all in this together. Let us protest. Let us stand up for that which we believe in. And let us not allow others with agendas that are against what we stand for to pretend to be one of us. Do I know how that happens? No, I don't. It became very clear last night that most of the protesters left when they were told to. They quietly walked away. Or not so quietly, some of them walked away. But they walked away. And then came the cars with the license plates that had been taken off, so somebody was thinking of something ahead of time. And the people who had the tools to break into places. And I would imagine some of those people started out as protesters, possibly not peaceful ones, but protesters nonetheless, and saw an opportunity to maybe get a pair of shoes for their kids or a robe for their wife or who knows. Protest if you have something to say. It's your right. And it just might make a difference. What will make a bigger difference, I think, is that if each one of us would go about our lives on a daily basis with an absolute dedication to be as understanding as we possibly can, to be loving, to be careful, to not make assumptions about people because of their color. I see how many of you are commenting on relatives who are on the police force, and I've met many of them. And they are good people. And they are the majority. I don't think any of the peaceful protesters started the rioting last night. I think those with other agendas started the rioting. That's my personal feelings. And the good police will deal with that, hopefully. Thank you, Nancy. Nancy says the first step is making friendships with people of color. Yes. Good Lord, yes. And I know to some extent I'm preaching to the choir. I understand that, but the choir is who's here. And if just one of you does something different in the next 24 or 48 hours because of what you heard here this morning, then I'm satisfied. Well, maybe not completely satisfied, but I'm happy. One person at a time. Get out there and be your God self. Don't ignore somebody because of their color. My mother was an unconscious bigot. I said that to her face more than once. She, it was so intrinsic in her that she didn't even know it was there. She said to me one time, but your babysitter when you were little was a black girl. I don't think she said black girl. I'm sure she didn't say black girl. That phrase probably hadn't even been heard by then. She didn't get it. She thought if she hired a black person that was sufficient to prove that she wasn't a bigot. And then she said a few other things as time went on, and every time she did, I called her on it. But I have to recognize what's in me as well. We all do. It's the only way we'll overcome it. It doesn't make us bad people. It makes us not wise people, not understanding people. Sometimes it makes us ignorant people. Let's not be that anymore. Let's be bigger than that. Let's recognize that, in fact, boy, yes, we are all in this together. You know, this virus should teach us quite a bit when you really think about it. It doesn't care what color you are. If you do the wrong things, it's going to get you. Is it affecting more people of color? Yes. And we all know why. I don't have to go into that. Do something in the next 48 hours. I was going to say this week, but you know, do something in the next 48 hours that will make a difference. In your life, in someone else's life, be understanding. Exercise your right to be understanding. Yes, Dana says, bearing witness, speaking up, changing laws will start the change that needs to happen now. Yes, and it does need to happen now. That's why I'm assigning you 48 hours. I'm allowing that you might have great plans for tomorrow. And the opportunity may not arise. Go out and make it. Make the opportunity. We are so good at looking at one another in church or in our yoga classes or wherever we may be and saying namaste. Namaste. Which means the God in me sees and recognizes the God in you. Now, are you going to limit that understanding to your family, to your yoga teacher, to the people who look just like you on the other mats? Or are you going to start setting people aside and saying, well, namaste, but only here in the yoga class? Namaste. Let the God in you see the God in others, and the color barriers will come down. No, I didn't like how that sounded. We don't want barriers to come down. The color barriers will be blown up. If the God in me really sees the God in you, then I have nothing to fear. And you can be my friend and I can be yours. And we might as well be, because, folks, we are all in this together. Bye, Jennifer. Bye, Kirk. Please. I'm not asking much. 48 hours. Do something. And then come on back on Wednesday and let's talk about what you did and what a difference it made. if we truly believe what we say, then we will act. If there are Christians out there believing that, they will act. And if they are not at least trying to understand, then they are not Christians. And if we are not at least trying to act, then we are not metaphysicians. We are not religious scientists. We are not unity members. We are not at all what we claim to be. And I know you are. I know you are. Donna says Julia and Brandon went to bear witness but violated curfew. Oops. We can all bear witness. Yes, we can. And we can obey the laws. They are not mutually exclusive. "48 hours. I want to make it 24. But I said it 48 now. Stick with it, okay? Let's do it together. Let's start a wave of understanding, of seeing beyond color. You know, when I was little, my mother said purple was a bad girl color. She did. Only bad girls wore purple. I didn't believe her, but I remember her saying it. Now I've got to tell you, I am surrounded by purple. Most of you know that. I love it. I've changed my mind. So whatever that bigotry is in your mind, whatever that ism is in your mind that is separating you from anyone, change your mind. See with the eyes of God. You can. You have to just to decide to do that, and it will make all of the difference. So let's pray, shall we? Shall we? And we'll include Kirk and Jennifer in our prayers, even though they had to leave. And I'd like to include Julia and Brandon, who are gratefully out of jail, and in my heart. So let's take a moment. Close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. If it's not, just soft focus, so that your attention is going within rather than without. And let us be in God. For in this we are all together. Let us be in the awareness of the presence that is all around about and deeply within us. And that presence is love. It is peace. It is wisdom. It is understanding. That presence knows all, sees all, is all. And being all, it is every color. every color of the rainbow, every color of the spectrum. It is present within each and every one of us. And where it seems not to be present, we can call it forth by the recognition of it. Namaste. The God in me sees and recognizes the God within you. And I ask you to do the same for me. To look through the eyes of God at this being who wants to understand, who wants to love you, who wants to relinquish the fear and the anger and the confusion in my heart. And wants to open to the divinity within yours. We are in this adventure together. We have crossed paths because we were meant to meet. I honor your journey and ask you to honor mine. And if we can be friends, if we can learn to love one another, then let us do that. And if we cannot, then let us at least part, having learned and grown from our time together. We are each facets of the divine, adorned in beautiful, glorious, different colors. Let us learn to respect that, to honor that, and to grow until we finally are big enough to love that. There is peace in my heart today because you are here and because I have come here to be healed, to be whole. And I and we together have found what we have come for. And we take that with us now into the world, into the rest of today and tomorrow. And use it to give us courage, to move us into action, that we may be the blessing we are intended to be in this world. I am so deeply grateful for the difference that we make. And we do. Grateful for the peace that we make. And we do. Grateful for the love that we share. Because I know it changes the world for good. Our intention is to change the world for good. And we do. And so it is. If we are to change the world, we must first change ourselves. It starts here. We can do so much good. We can learn to love greater, to care deeper. We have all that we need. We really do have all that we need. I love you all. I feel better. I hope you do. There are people out there waiting just for you to love them, to understand them. Go get them. Thank you for being here. I'll be back Wednesday night at 7 and again next Sunday at noon. Please join me. Share the video as much as you would like. It's free. What's better than that? I'll see you next week. Have a great week. Go make the difference you were born to make.